incredible.
Sandstone, beautiful.
It's all the way through Huddersfield. As we were coming in, because we came from the north, all of the way in, it's just all old, like asylum buildings, and oh, they're beautiful, gorgeous.
Yeah, I did a lot of work at Leeds Playhouse over the years, and I'm very grateful to it, because that's where I met the mother of my son. And they're over at a wedding at Beverley Minster, and I'm going to go there tonight for the wedding reception. I just thought you'd like to know. It's interesting, isn't it?
So the family all from around Leeds area, if that's the case?
No, we were working at Leeds Playhouse.
Right, okay.
And that was a very little time ago, 1986 or 86. Oh, I'm elderly.
So have you ever been to Huddersfield Theatre before? This is your very first time?
This is my very first time. I really am looking forward to seeing it. I mean, look at it. Beautiful.
Gorgeous architecture. So we're going to
That
talk...
a little less so, perhaps, but in its own way.
Yes. We went through the back end of one of the shops in there yesterday, and it was like something off a horror movie. It was quite bizarre, quite bizarre. So we're going to talk theatre for a little while, if that's okay. So I know that we spoke yesterday about where I'm from, so we have Newcastle Theatre Royal. You've done a lot in some of the theatres with the Royal Shakespeare Company, predominantly, and worked with some incredible people as well. Do you have any theatres that really stick out in your mind as being the most amazing one that you've been to, or?
I think the Swan Theatre in Stratford-on-Avon, where I've done a lot of my Royal Shakespeare Company stuff. Let's call it Shouting in Wigs in the Evening. It's Shakespeare work. There's the Swan Theatre, which is loosely based. It's a thrust stage, so the stage goes out, the audience is sort of wrapped around the stage on various levels. It's a bit like a Shakespearean theatre would have been. And that's a gorgeous theatre. Theatre Royal Newcastle is a lovely, lovely place. And also I've always loved the Old Vic, but I've never played there. The Old Vic in London would be a lovely, that's an ambition to play there.
I've only ever once been to the Old Vic, and it was a long time ago when I was a lot younger. And yeah, walk in and it's mesmerising when you walk through. So speaking of Royal Shakespeare Company, is there a Shakespeare play, shall we go with, that really sticks in your mind as one of your favourites from that side of things?
I've done various versions of Twelfth Night, which I think is one of the great plays. It's all human life is there, Twelfth Night. I've given a couple of Andrew Ague cheats because I've got comedy legs. Lovely character he is. And I played Malvolio, which is quite a difficult part to play. He's on his own most of the time, he's a loner. And all the low comedians like me are at the back, behind him, taking the pee. I love that, and I loved King John, because I got to play a king at Stratford-on-Avon. A bad king, but nevertheless, I was the king in King John. That's an underrated play, I think. We had a good time doing that one.
Some of the other people that obviously have gone before with the Royal Shakespeare Company, the likes of say McKellen and Patrick Stewart, is there anyone that really grabs you as a fellow RSC actor?
I have been grabbed by a few RSC actors, but the main one, who many of you will not know actually, he died years ago. He's a man called Sir Robert Stevens, and he gave the most definitive Falstaff. It's a great role, obviously, in the Henry IV plays. Wonderful, wonderful actor. He was in a film called The Prime of Miss Jean Brodie with his then wife, Maggie Smith. And he was just one of those actors who embodied the role entirely. He was a beautiful actor, wonderful. I said to him once, he just used to stub his cigarette out in the wings and wander on and start being Falstaff. And I said, you don't really prepare, do you, Robert? And he said, well, no, we've done the rehearsals, we don't need to do any more. We are that person now. And I think that's true. He was a wonderful man. Robert Stevens, look him up. Private Life of Sherlock Holmes, a Billy Wilder film he did as well. Great actor.
So what got you involved in the theatre? What was it that really caught your soul and got you in there and loving it and doing what you do best?
My My parents were both involved in the theatre. My father was an actor and became a straight man, as they call it, to comedians. Some of us of a certain age will remember Charlie Drake, hello my darlings, and who's my godfather, and people like Arthur Haynes and Al Reed, right, long kid. He was from over the other side, Manchester, and my father was that. My mum was a dancer with the Royal Opera Ballet, and my parents met when they were doing a summer season. My father was with Charlie Drake in Great Yarmouth, and my mum was on the other theatre with Benny Hill as one of his dancers. So they met in the theatre. So I sort of steeped in theatrical tradition, but I think my love of it really came from my old hero Peter O'Toole. I saw several of his films on the television in rapid succession: Goodbye Mr. Chips, Country Dance, and The Lion in Winter, and I loved him. And I just became obsessed with acting, and went to drama school. And I'm a tall, funny-looking thing, so I do tend to get work. And I've also got better at the craft of it over the years. I love it. It's a nice thing to do. People have always loved sitting in the dark and being told a story. That's what actors do.
100%.
He says in a very twee and glib way. That's what we do, you know. Telling a story.
So you've gone very much full circle with going from theatre. You've been in movies, you've done TV shows, you've gone all the way around. Do you find that you've got a preference or a comfort zone that you fall into within acting now, with where you are, whether it's theatre or whether it's on TV?
I used to be very self-conscious in front of the camera because, you know, being tall and thin with funny teeth and eyebrows, you don't always love yourself that much. Actors are very strange. There's a mixture of total sort of anxiousness and fear and arrogance. It's very unappealing, really. And speaking personally, obviously. I used to be very self-conscious in front of the camera. And then when I got the Holby City job, where I knew I was going to have to be in front of a camera 5 days a week all day, I thought, well, it's sink or swim time. You either have to relax and try to enjoy it and get better at it, or you'll be a wreck of a human being and a nuisance to everybody else, which of course I was and am, but I did get used to acting in front of a camera, and now I'm not so bad, not so frightened or self-conscious as I used to be. But I suppose I still love theatre best. I'd like to do another play at some point.
Is there anything in the pipeline with regards to sort of plays that you've had your eye on, or maybe something that's up and coming that you thought would really like to get into that?
I wanted to do the play Shadowlands, which was a great television play with Nigel Hawthorne about C.S. Lewis. But my friend Hugh Bonneville nicked that idea from me and did it himself at Chichester a few years ago. I'm sort of joking. I would like to do that. Doesn't mean I can't do it, you know. I always wanted to play Richard II and never did. But I think Richard II he talks a lot, Richard II. It's all about him. Funny that. So I think it's a good evening for Richard II and probably very boring for everybody watching. It's a lovely play. Great work, poetry, great play. That play Art. Have anybody seen the play Art? It's about three friends who have long sort of lifestyle discussions based on a big white canvas painting. That's a lovely play. We might do that at one point. But no, I don't have a long felt want to particularly. I often think the most exciting things are the ones that come by accident. You never ever know what you're going to do next. Obviously, sometimes you can try to get a project together, but on the whole, you're pleasantly or otherwise surprised by what comes at you.
Very much so. So, pleasantly surprised. When it come to stepping into Star Wars, was that one that came along as a random, or was that something that you thought quite a bit about before you went through for it?
No, I hadn't thought about Star Wars at all. My agent rang up and said there's a very secret project, and we are going to have a very secret meeting in a very secret way with a secret director. Anyway, it wasn't that secret. The director took me to one of the best-known sort of media bars in London, and we huddled in a corner, and they asked me, he said, would I like to do it? And for those of you who don't know, I played Grand Moff Tarkin in Rogue One, which is a Star Wars sort of spin-off story. And then the magic people at Steven Spielberg's studio put this CGI makeup on me so that I ended up looking like the great Peter Cushing, who originated the role in the original film.
It was unreal. Unreal.
It was a bit unreal. I thought it was a bit PlayStation 4. But no, a lot of it was brilliant. And I think, you know, if we do it again at some point, they'll probably be even more brilliant now. I think that sort of technology moves on every 8 seconds, I think. It's very, very clever. But it was very frightening because I loved Peter Cushing as an actor. I thought he was brilliant and lovely voice and all that. And trying to do him justice was what was challenging about that, because I didn't want to let him down. He was, by all accounts, a lovely man as well, Peter Cushing. There's a nice story about him. You know, he was, Peter Cushing, very stern, a beautiful face, and he was in a lot of Hammer horror films, often as a baddie, really, I think. And he and his wife had been to an awards ceremony in London. They lived down Whitstable in Kent. He was driving back in all the white tie affair, the black coat, the bow tie, looking frightfully like Peter Cushing in a horror film. And there was a thunderstorm, and the car broke down, and he said to his wife, I see a farmhouse over there. I'll go and see if the farmer will help us. And he went across the fields with his cape and his black tie, white tie outfit, and knocked on the door of the farmhouse. It was flung open by the farmer, and a flash of lightning and a crack of thunder came down, and Peter Cushing said to the farmer, good evening, and the farmer fell to the floor in a dead faint.
I can't think of
I'm sure that's true. Sure it is.
Even if it's not, it's a fantastic story. It is the type that you would not want to open your door to Peter Cushing.
Oh, I would. He was lovely.
Terrible. Oh, with that drama behind it, though, amazing.
Yeah, exactly.
So Holby City, there's quite obviously a legacy around Holby and casualty. How did that role come about?
I did have to audition quite a bit for that. I had to do a screen test, I think, or meet all the frightening executives and all that stuff. And they wanted to make sure, really, that I could, I suppose, say all the long medical words. But having done a lot of Shakespeare and Ben Jonson, I suppose I was sort of trained up in long words and tortuous phrasing. I remember my audition line was, your father has a pheochromocytoma, which is a neuroendocrine tumor on the medulla of the adrenal gland. I still say that in my nightmares. Anyway, I got the role. He was originally going to be an Arabic doctor, but they couldn't find the right actor for that for some reason. And so then when I auditioned for Henrik Hanssen, he was called Arnold Brown. And they changed him to a Swedish gentleman. I'm not quite sure why. I think it's probably because I'd done so much theatre, I sounded a bit stilted on the screen maybe, so they thought they'd better make me foreign, so they made me Swedish. Funny that.
Yeah.
They used to give me Swedish things to say. I don't know if any of you speak Swedish,
no.
But I don't recommend even trying. It's extremely difficult to pronounce.
Not at all. So just before I jump down into the crowd, I'm going to see how long my cable will stretch. Is there anything that you have coming up that you're able to let us in on, any little secrety tidbits?
Well, I'm currently playing a really nasty doctor in the prequel to Bridgerton, which is on Netflix at the moment. It's called Queen Charlotte. And I come prancing in episode 4 as the nasty doctor to King George III. And that was a lovely thing to do, and that's out on Netflix now. So I give him ice baths and have him slapped about a bit. So if anyone fancies that, I'm your man.
Netflix are definitely monopolising a lot of the actors' time at the moment.
Well, I wish they'd monopolised mine a bit more. That was last year we filmed that. What's happened to this year?
Has there, did you have much impact with filming during COVID? I know obviously theatres closed down and things went a little bit awry with that side of things.
Actually, we had a couple of months off doing Holby City, but we got back into it during the height of the pandemic. We had to stand 2 meters apart, which is quite tricky when you're playing a scene with somebody. You had to do your own hair and makeup because nobody was allowed to come near you. Oh, it was tough. Oh, no, it was fine. We kept going, and they did this thing called plate shots, which is where you'll have a tennis ball or something on a stick here. You ask Hugh Bonneville, my friend who did Shadowlands, about that, because he acts half his life at a tennis ball, pretending it's Paddington Bear. There, and then the camera films you with a plate in it, and then the other actor isn't there. They read their lines off shot, and then the other actor comes in and does the scene there, and you're not there. And in the edit, in the edit, they stick it together.
I was talking to some of the guys from Doctor Who a couple of weeks back at a con, and they had said that the crew were literally walking around with a stick and putting it between them and going, nope.
Yeah, oh yeah. Yeah, we had the COVID monitors, yeah, yes. They kept keeping 2 meters apart, which is no good when you're trying to act.
It takes away from the atmosphere of it, I guess. Has anybody in the crowd got any questions for Guy that they would like to come and ask?
Hello Angie, hello husband.
Anybody got any questions they would like to ask Guy? Yeah, do you want to come up here?